What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Empowered Dynasty, and I am your boss of all bosses, Q the Boss. Listen, today's topic is rich versus wealthy. It's an extreme difference, but I feel like a lot of the reason why I'm doing this topic today is because I feel like people don't know the difference. I feel like most people think that wealth is acquired instantly, or rich can be acquired over a life expectancy. There are a lot of people who have acquired riches. But wealth is acquired over generations. Meaning, wealth is basically explaining how long can you go without working. That shows your wealth. But rich are some of the most hardest working people I know. A doctor could be very rich. A lawyer could be very rich. An accountant could be very rich. A barber could be very rich. It all depends on what you do with the finances. A lot of people misconstrue the two. And I've noticed that maybe I should do a topic talking about this matter because a lot of people don't know the difference. So they say, oh, are you rich? Are you wealthy? I am not wealthy. I am the first one in my genes that is doing what I'm doing. My mother didn't know any better. Financially, she was not, I wouldn't say illiterate. She was explained or underdeveloped as far as knowing finances. And my grandmother even worse. So with that being said, they survived. People don't know that there's a difference between living and surviving. You can survive every day, but the whole concept is learning how to live, meaning buying back your freedom. The rich are working hard to the point where they're starting to buy back their freedom. The wealthy, they have a lot of freedom, meaning they can take days and days on days and not worry about where the money's gonna come from. So these are the guys that usually we consider them hedge fund babies. These are the guys that grandma and grandpa did great things for them. So therefore they're in a position economically that they don't have to chase the mighty dollar. But again, that's not most people's situation. And it takes generations to acquire this. I'll give you a scenario. I was having a conversation with a guy that I'm very close with. I love him to death, so don't take it personal if you hear this topic. He follows me on YouTube too. So this guy said, Q, what should I do? He's in his late 60s. And this is the beautiful thing about it. As a younger guy, I've noticed that older, middle, and younger keep asking me questions about finances. And I tell them, having a literacy and understanding is how you economically change your positioning. For instance, what is supposed to happen if you're the first generation that is acquiring any kind of riches, you're supposed to pass it on to the next generation. And the number one way to do it is with homes. A lot of people sell their homes not realizing that they just killed the whole legacy of the family as far as wealth. And I'll explain why. Let's just say grandpa bought a house. Grandpa bought a house at the time for $100,000, right? Grandpa passes the house on to dad. Dad adds an extension to the house. Now this house is worth, in dad's generation, the house, let's say, is worth, let's say $300,000. Grandpa bought it for $100,000. Now it's worth $300,000. Now, dad passes the house on to son. Son gets the house. Now the house is worth $400,000, $500,000. Son has the house. All he does is add an extension to the house also. So now you get to grandson. Grandson is inheriting a house worth $600,000 in an economy where people are buying those houses for $600,000, but grandson, he's not paying that price. Let's just say grandson still has a mortgage on that house. Chances are $200,000 in a $600,000 economy. That means he has $400,000 in something called equity. He's at an advantage. His wealth is starting to pay off from grandpa's sacrifice. Then dad's sacrifice, then son, now grandson. So it's trickling down. This is how wealth is acquired. But a lot of people don't realize that if you don't sacrifice yourself for the next generation, there is no wealth building on your family. And that's period. Whether you like to believe otherwise, entirely up to you. But again, if you want to change the economical position of your family, you have to realize sacrifices have to be made for the next generation. If you're not thinking about your futures as far as who's to come after you with that same last name, then there's no way you're going to acquire wealth. But yet and still people believe otherwise. And I laugh because I say to myself, I get it. Social media has put a blindfold over your eyes and now you're walking around bird boxing, thinking that this is the way to wealth. but it's not true. And the reason why it's not true is because if I make something sound easy, people will buy into it. So now, with my YouTube channel, I haven't created something called clickbait. I created something called real bait. It's real. I tell the truth. Now let's get back to riches. Me acquiring riches, I've learned that the richest people, they work very hard. They work very, very, very hard. So if you're the first person acquiring any kind of money, you're the hardest, you're hardworking. And now the next generation is gonna work a lot easier because of the sacrifices that you made. And that's how it's trickled down. But people think they're gonna acquire riches by chilling. Let's get into this lottery. I can't believe that people still buying into this lottery thing. The lottery mentality has become people's way of living. They believe that I can roll the dice with my futures every day with this lottery thing and I'm eventually gonna win. I'm not gonna say there aren't winners, but here's the catch-22. They say over 90% of lottery winners go back to being broke because those lottery winners never changed their mentalities. So their mentality was gambling. It wasn't how to format my life into success. It was gamble. Gamble, 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 gamble. And therefore, their lifestyle is about gambling. And their results is gambling. They're risk takers, which I understand. But you should not risk your life on a gamble. You should strategically come up with a plan and plan how you're gonna navigate yourself to the promised land. See, what I'm trying to get at is this. By having a plan, you are ahead of the learning curve. And I'm talking about a plan, that's not a year, that's not 2 years. Plan 5 years, plan 10 years. And I'm telling you, you will hit some pinnacles. I know people that plan 5-year plans and actually hit these plans way faster than they expected, myself. I planned a 10-year plan and actually hit it in 7 years. And the reason why I hit it is because I stayed the course. So even though my finances was going up, I was utilizing that money to advance myself even more and more and more and more. So I never got stationed or stagnated because of the fact that I stayed to my plan. But the problem is, most people, once they see a little controversy, things get a little wacky, they tend to deviate from the plan. Why? Here's the catch. I call your phone right now. Yo, let's go on a vacation. You just saved $3,000 to invest, but now you're about to blow the money to take a trip. Why? Because you believe that you are worthy of a vacation. You're worthy of rest. You do not have to be in Miami. You do not have to be in Puerto Rico. A little bit of sacrifice goes a long way. A lot of people aren't willing to sacrifice. And I've noticed the richest people are the ones who are willing to sacrifice time. So they leverage their time to acquire riches, so therefore they're buying back their time now. So their later selves are enjoying their lives more. Most young people don't realize that if you want to have fun while you're young, you're going to suffer when you're older. Why? Because you never set yourself up. You were having fun. Party, 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 party. Now you're 60s, 50s. Now you want to lock in and start working hard. But in reality, you're supposed to have did that when you were young, and now you're enjoying your later days. That's the reality. Your body can't labor the same as it can in its 20s, in your teens, in your 30s, in your 40s. The body cannot labor as much. You're lucky if you can labor that hard in your 50s. You're even luckier if you can labor harder in your 60s. Your objective is to plan how you're going to get to these levels when they come. You don't live for the day, you live for the future. Your future self would thank yourself today for the fact that you made the sacrifices today, planning for tomorrow and the next day and the next day and so forth. But a lot of people tend to not think like that. They think I can sit down and life is just going to happen by chance. There is no chance. Life doesn't happen by chance. Life happens by sacrifice and the willingness to stick to the plan. The plan is the plan. Again, you can't say to yourself that I'm special. It's just gonna happen for me. That's not gonna happen. It's gonna happen by the sacrifices that you make. And when you realize that you are your worst enemy, because reality is, let's give you 5 friends. 5 friends wanna take a trip. That one friend says, you know what? I'm gonna sit this one out. For the next 5 years, these friends travel, they pop bottles, they chase girls, they live their best life. And vice versa, the girls chase guys, and they live their best life. You fast forward 5 years, the guy who sat out all of those experiences, he was invested. Now has way more freedom in reality because of what they weren't willing to sacrifice. He sacrificed 60 months of his life to change his 61st month. So his 61st month and on, he will live better than them because of the fact that he was able to see futures and plan. That's what the riches do and the wealthy do. Wealthy people tend to plan futures. Sometimes rich can be acquired only for one generation, and it can be lost. I've seen it tons of times. So this is the issue with the rich and the wealthy. The wealthy are the ones I said with the future mentality. They plan it long term. The rich, and also understanding with the rich, in order to lose it, if you don't create a successor to take on the legacy, it will end right there. So here's the issue. And this is my issue with degrees. You can sit down and tell me right now your father has a PhD. That don't make you a PhD. Your dad was a PhD. So what I'm trying to say, education don't roll over, it don't will. It doesn't will. I don't care what you say. I can tell you my father was the highest, he has an MBA, but that doesn't make me. So you get what I'm saying? These are credentials for oneself, which is a beautiful title. Your father could be Professor James Norwood, but you're not Professor James Norwood. You could be Professor James Norwood Jr.'s son, but you're not Professor Norwood. But the fact of the matter is, understanding by investing into your future, you're playing for wealth and planning and teaching your children that you're my successor. And I have to show you how to navigate, so therefore you're able to take care of my grandchildren the way I want you to be able to take care of my grandchildren. You don't want your legacy to end with you. But again, the pension theory. A lot of people brag about their pensions. But I've noticed that a lot of people, when they die, the pension dissolves. 30 years of laboring for this pension, 25 years of laboring for this pension, that the day you die, it dissolves. So let's just say I was able to put 2.5 million into this pension. They say the average life expectancy is what, 72? So let's just say I retired at 65. 65 and 72 is what? 8 years? 7 years? 7 years. So I get to enjoy 7 years is $2.5 million, right? Now let's just say I get paid every month $6,000. You do the math. I would like to take out my calculator. 6 times 12, you do the math and see over let's say the 7 years you live, let's just say you spend $500,000, right? Now you die. I just told you saved $2.5 million. When you die, that 2.5 dissolves to the company that was paying your pension. It does not will to your children. So your legacy ended that day you hit your demise. No wealth being built right there. You know what you just did? You hit a button called reset. And now your children are resetted in an economy that is higher than it was for you. When you bought that house was $100,000. Now your son is fighting for that $300,000 house. And the sad part is, salaries aren't increasing. And the problem with a lot of people is they believe the salaries aren't increasing, but they believe by giving out more of their time, they're making more money. You're not making more money by giving out more time. The only way you give out that much time is if there's a plan. You don't stay on the hamster wheel forever. You buy back your time. And that's the whole concept of wealth. Wealthy people have bought their time to the point now they're living residual, free. And that's the realities. Average investors looking for, with money, we talk money people, anywhere from 8 to 10%. Let's get into inflation. Money inflates every year, it grows. It loses value every year. And by losing value, the salaries aren't keeping up with inflation. I was dating a teacher. I don't want to blow her up, but I'm gonna just say it. Her salary is equivalent to back in the days. I think she makes, let's say 60, 70K. Back in the days, a teacher hasn't been given a raise for a very long time. So her salary was equivalent, it was good for grandpa's generation. But dad's generation, maybe. But now for my generation, it's not a good salary. Once you equate taxes, see the problem is that with a lot of people that earn, especially the $100,000 earners, they tend to tell you they make $100,000. But here's the issue. They do make $100,000, but You got gross, and you have net. They're taxed on $100,000, so they do not make $100,000. They're taxed on $100,000. They're a $100,000 taxpayer, but they do not take home 100. Maybe 64, 68, and on a good note, 70. So realistically, you're losing $30,000 right there. Uncle Sam, he takes his money before you even see your check. And that's reality. That's the difference between a 1099 and a W-2 employee. A W-2 employee's taxed before he even sees his money. A 1099, which is self-employed, you're able to navigate and write off things that are regular expenses that a W-2 employee would have. For instance, as a 1099 employee, which is self-employed, I can go buy a TV and write off the TV. Meanwhile, all I did was put the TV in my house, but I said it was for my business. The same TV you would have purchased as a W-2 employee. So I tell everybody to understand this. Even if you are a W-2 employee, you should start your LLC, which is a 1099, so you can write off certain items. Gas, travel, laundry. We can keep going with multiple things. Even if you have a car in your corporation, every time you do repairs on the car, you can write it off also. There's tons of write-offs and tax breaks that they don't teach. The wealthy have been implementing for years to the point they've changed their economical positioning because they understand the system. By understanding the system is how you hack the system. Every law has a hack. For instance, let's just use the criminal justice system. My son goes into court without money, my son gets 30 years. The wealthy kid goes into court with the same charge, he gets 30 days. The difference is finances and also the relationships that his parents may have. Sometimes we don't realize that in order to acquire rich, you have to be willing to sacrifice oneself for the next generation. In understanding economics, in teaching. Don't tell your kid they'll just figure it out. That's the worst thing you can do to your child. By them sending them out to the wolves and trying to figure it out, your kid has to be sat down and explained finances. I don't want to talk on a racial standpoint, but there's a reason why the Jews are so financially illiterate. There's a reason, because it's taught to them. It's clearly taught to them. Because there's no reason why a 13 or 14-year-old, and he's embedded into a mindset because it's become their culture, which I adore. I love it, and I implement it in my home. Living within your means. Just because you make this salary don't mean you have to drive a Benz or a BMW. Knowing that no matter what a car is just a car. And the sad part is, this is one of the biggest expenses that the broke people tend to spend the most money on, the liabilities. Trips, clothes, shoes, cars, even a relationship can be a liability. A relationship can be a liability, whether it's your boyfriend, whether it's your girlfriend. And by understanding that, changing your mind is how you change your economical positioning. Learning is an extreme difference between being rich and being wealthy. Lastly, I'm gonna say this. The rich is acquired over one generation. Wealth is acquired over generations. So if you want to become wealthy, you have to understand you may have to sacrifice yourself for the next generation. If you're not thinking like that, you're never gonna change your position. So a lot of people sit down every day and they say, I wanna be rich. That can happen. And that's truth be told. But the wealthy that has done it in one generation are the ones that say Elon Musk. He created Tesla. Tesla has gave this man generational wealth because he's created Tesla. Let's look at Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos created Amazon. So for him, he acquired wealth because of what he created. These are the rare occurrences. This is not the phenomenons that happen every day. You look at most NBA players, they're rich. And they work very hard to sustain their situation. They work very hard. The top lawyers in the country, they work very hard. They're rich. The top doctors in this country, they work very hard and they're rich. So what I'm trying to get at is, don't think you're gonna acquire riches without putting in work. And again, in order to acquire wealth, remember, wealth is the Elon Musk, the Jeff Bezos, the Warren Buffetts. These are the families that acquire wealth. Wealth in America is only 1% of the country's total population are wealthy. 1%. So again, start your wealth in your home with this generation by understanding that you can gravitate towards rich. But stop thinking about being wealthy. Teaching your children how to become wealthy is how you start your legacy and your grandkids. Like, comment, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I appreciate everybody. Thank you for watching. I'm Q the Boss. Also, follow me on Instagram at QTheBoss516. I appreciate everybody. Peace.